our first mock draft. Post-free agency is in the books. Where did Jaylen Waddle go? Where did Walker go? Where did Achane go? How about the Commanders running backs, the Buccaneers running backs, the Buccaneers wide receivers? Mike Evans went pretty early in the 4th round. There were some very interesting picks for sure. I'm Adam Azer here, although I see I haven't changed my name back from Adam Achane on YouTube because everybody's name is Achane apparently now. Jamey is here. Hey, Jamey.
Good morning.
Dan is it? Dan, very weird. Was rooting for Venezuela last night. So congratulations.
What? You can't put that on me. At no point did I ever say that to you. Wasn't rooting for Venezuela. I was actually watching the World Baseball Classic. First time watching baseball in what feels like a while just because of the end of the season, but I don't really watch too much regular season baseball in real MLB. I got to say, World Baseball Classic, a lot more fun than regular MLB. And I'd argue a lot better than just watching a random NBA game.
I thought our esteemed guest, who, by the way, showed up on time on Monday, Joe Pisapia, said what I think is a great idea, that if there is a lockout, we just have the World Baseball Classic and a bunch of best-of-7 series.
Yeah.
Sure.
I also like the World Baseball Classic to me. We won't spend too much time on this, but I just find it so interesting. Like, how do we go 4 innings with a guy is he even in a rotation this year, Eduardo Rodriguez, against the all-stars of all stars, and he doesn't get hit? Like, that's baseball for you. Like, that can't happen in any other sport.
Yeah.
I don't even think this guy's in a rotation this year, is he?
I have no idea, honestly.
So.
I mean, we made him look like Cy Young.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If he wasn't yesterday, he might be after that. All right, so we'll go through the draft and mostly just talk about where the players who were affected by free agency ended up. And that is so many players. It's probably half the league, I mean, or close to it. Talk about guys on teams that lost a player or added a player, whatever it is. There's so many players. But, yeah, we'll give you the best and the worst picks. Just some news and notes. While we were on the air on Monday, the Chiefs acquired Justin Fields from the Jets. Jamey and I did a bonus pod on Jaylen Waddle, who was drafted in the 3rd round, which Jamey and Dan think is too early, late 3rd round in the draft we did yesterday. So he's with Denver. The Eagles signed Marquise Brown to a 1-year, $10 million deal. James Boyd was writing about projecting the Colts, athletic beat writer for the Colts, and he thinks that the Colts will have to add someone at wide receiver, but no matter what they do at wide receiver, Tyler Warren will be the number 2 pass catcher for the Colts. That's what James Boyd of The Athletic thinks. ESPN reporting that Achane is not on the trade market, and the 49ers signed Christian Kirk to a 1-year deal as he looks to bounce back from kind of a disappointing season for Christian Kirk. All right, let's get to our mock draft review and the best and the worst values. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the mock draft. You can see all the results. I encourage everyone to go to youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. You can see our videos there. If you click the live tab, you'll see everything you need of all the live shows that we do. Okay, so Jamey, let's start with what you thought was the best value of any player affected by free agency or trades. And you said it was Romeo Doubs, who went with the 11th pick of round 7. That was just before DK Metcalf, Jackson Dart, Jaylen Warren, and Jordan Addison. So your best value, based just players affected by free agency or trades, was Romeo Doubs.
As of now, because we could still see a A.J. Brown trade, which I think a lot of people are speculating that if he does get traded, the Patriots are probably the leader in the clubhouse. I don't know what the odds are, but that's what you seem to see a lot of. So that would change things. But if Doubs opens the season as the Stephon Diggs replacement, just from a 1-to-1, one guy leaving, one guy coming, I think Doubs has an opportunity to have the best year of his career. I think he'll be in an offense that will feature him. I think it'll be an opportunity for him to go over 1,000 yards for the first time, hopefully be in that 7 touchdown range, and maybe be over 14 PPR points per game. So that would put him as a borderline number 2 receiver. You're getting him on Jake's roster here with the 11th pick as his 4th receiver, which is awesome. So that could be his flex. But I really like the opportunity for Romeo Doubs as of now and where he was drafted. I know when we had the free agency podcast, or when we were doing the free agency podcast, I remember what Dave and Heath said. I know how I feel about it. Like, I don't think there should be so much separation between Wan'Dale Robinson and Romeo Doubs. Jake, ironically enough, took both. He got Doubs 2 rounds later. I think those guys are in a similar range, in similar situation for what their outcome could be. Not how they get it done, but how their outcome could be, just based on where they ended up and their roles on their respective teams.
I could be wrong about Wan'Dale Robinson, but I think he was one of the worst picks in my opinion at 5'11", the 11th pick of round 5. Doubs, two rounds later, the 11th pick of round 7.
He even went before his height, which is incredible.
I don't think so. His height's 5'9", if I believe so.
No, there's no way he's a touch over 5'8".
Right. So 5'11" for Wan'Dale Robinson. But
that's what I meant. I didn't say it through.
Oh, okay. No, if he had been lower than his height, right, that would have been really something. But okay. So Doubs there. Dan, your favorite pick was this your pick, Chris Rodriguez?
Yeah, in a shade of narcissism that you can only grow into expect from me on a show like this, I chose my own selection for my favorite value pick from the free agents and the players that moved. It was Chris Rodriguez. Look, if anyone had taken Chris Rodriguez before me, I would have taken that as well. I think I could go up to at least a round before where he was taken and feel like that was value. Chris Rodriguez, first of all, you look into the metrics since he's entered the NFL, he's been one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL on a per touch basis. Somehow, some way, that's the case. Then you actually take the time to watch the tape, and it's like, yeah, this guy just gets it. He understands how to process behind the line of scrimmage. He sets up the blocks well. He runs low with a great center of gravity and great contact balance. And in addition to all of that, he joins the best possible situation. He joins his former college coach who loved him and used him as a workhorse. And he joins a Jacksonville team that generated so much yards before contact and so much in the run game, mostly with what I thought was design, not really great blocking up front individually. I think they might add to the offensive line in the draft. Like, I don't really see any reason why they wouldn't, given the rest of the roster and what they've done to add there. They need to replace Devin Lloyd at linebacker, but outside of that. So I like Tootin and Chris Rodriguez. I'm going to be drafting both of those players this year.
I don't think they're done, though. That's the problem.
That would be a big problem. Yes.
It just feels like, they were in on J.K. Dobbins from, things you hear. They were in on, there was another player. Algier. They were in on Algier and Dobbins were two guys that they were looking at. I think whatever they do in the draft will clearly be telling, whenever they address the position. Because right now, unless I'm mistaken, I'm missing somebody. The three guys on the roster are Tootin, Rodriguez, and LaQuinn Allen. They still need a fourth. So is the fourth coming in as, hey, depth, we'll see what this player does? Or is this guy coming in as, you have a chance to actually win the job? And so if it's a high-end rookie, meaning, day 2, because I don't think it's going to be day 1, then we'll see what that player is, who that player is, and what the pedigree, suggests. If it's, 6th round pick, 7th round pick, guy for depth, developmental type player, then I think both these guys are in great spots because, to your point, Rodriguez was a guy that, has been with the coaching staff, head coach Liam Cohen for, time in Kentucky. And then this is obviously the regime that drafted Tootin, with ideas of maybe him being a featured guy. So it's a good spot for both those guys right now.
They don't, and if I'm not mistaken, they don't have a first round pick that was traded for Travis Hunter.
That was, so you're right.
If they, it's possible, but it's so hard for me to imagine a franchise without a first round pick just says, you know what, I'll use my 2nd round pick on a running back.
Oh, I don't necessarily think it has to be, and clearly, teams could be creative. They could trade back into
right.
They could, certainly do one on as a 3rd round pick. I'm waiting to see Kamara, for example. Does he get cut or traded? I think that'd be a good fit, for Jacksonville, which I think would still be good for both of those running backs, Tootin and Rodriguez, because of where he is at, where Kamara's at with his age. But it's just waiting to see what happens. But I think where you got Rodriguez was fantastic, and I think where Tootin went also. I think that's Adam's favorite pick as well.
Yeah, right. It's interesting because my favorite pick, but neither of us knew the other one was picking a Jacksonville running back for this exercise here. So Dan says Chris Rodriguez, who by the way went with the 3rd pick of round 10. Probably, where did he go? 3rd pick of round 10 for Chris Rodriguez. I said Bajal Tootin with the 6th pick of round 6 in between Chuba Hubbard and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was the better value here. I do like Chris Rodriguez. I mean, he's been underrated. Just makes me wonder, I don't know. Is he really that good? He's not like he had a pedigree or anything like that. He doesn't have that many carries in his career. He has 198 carries in his career. He's averaged 4.6 yards per carry. He has 6 catches in his career. So Tootin obviously has a much bigger opportunity to be involved in the passing game. And Tootin is much more explosive than Chris Rodriguez. Rodriguez is just not that fast. He gets it done in other ways, but I want the guy who can make big plays. And I think Tootin, if he gets the opportunity, I think he could kind of get a bigger grip on the job. Obviously, Dan's going to draft Tootin ahead of Rodriguez, I assume. But what's better value to you, Dan? Tootin in round 6 or Rodriguez in round 10?
I've been high on Tootin all offseason, but I think I'll go with Rodriguez 4 rounds later. I think they're both set for very similar production. Tootin obviously is the league winning type upside, though, as you mentioned, with the explosiveness, the speed, and the ability in the passing game, which we haven't actually seen a lot of. We've seen it more at Virginia Tech. So we'll see if they actually feel like they can use him in that regard. It just the one thing that scares me is like they do like LaQuinn Allen. He's a great blocker, and he did get snaps that we didn't expect him to get last year. So if it turns into that type of situation, then I'm worried. But right now, I feel like I could draft both and be happy with either of those values, 6th round or 10th round.
I don't see Allen's role changing dramatically. He'll probably get a few more passing opportunities, but I mean, he's basically an offensive lineman. I mean, that's what they use it for, the pass protection.
Yeah. All right, folks. So we're going to get to the worst values here based on players who were affected by free agency one way or another. Whoa, Dan had just an absolute stinker of a pick. Wow.
Wait, my pick or the player I picked to be the worst value?
No, you're the player. Your pick in the draft. Woo,
let me say one thing about this draft, and I do appreciate this, and I like this. It's like one of the rare drafts we do during the year where there's no ADP data. Yeah, I kind of wish like once a year all of us did this in our real draft, where like you go into a draft, you don't get like the ADP data to sort through or the rankings. You just have to pick players based on your knowledge and no sorting, and that's what this draft is.
Well, I mean, if you draft at the beginning of training camp, so there are leagues that, because they want to do it in person, end of summer, for whatever reason. I know I do a couple of analyst drafts that we play out for, magazine purposes and whatnot. It's the exact scenario you're talking about.
But we don't have rankings for this draft.
We don't even have rankings for this. Right.
True.
So it's really just the Wild West out there, and you're going to make some mistakes when it comes to Wild West.
Oh, you did. You certainly did.
So I'm not surprised to hear it, but we will observe your mistakes as well.
Yeah, I made one, I think, really bad pick. But overall, I like the team. But okay, Dan, I have a question for you.
Somebody called me in the middle of the draft.
Okay. In
a panic, saying, "Can you make a pick for me, please? I have to pick up my children from the bus stop." Who do you think that was?
A good dad.
I mean, one might say a good dad. One might say an unprepared dad. I'll go with the latter. Adam Mazer.
Yeah.
Just kidding, buddy. You're not enough.
Like out of breath.
I was late.
You were late to the bus stop.
Can you pick, please? Cortland's son, Ricky Pearsall. And then I hear I'm assuming it was his son saying something like, "Dad, did you poop your pants?"
Yeah, it was something like that. Exactly. All right, we got to take a break. But before we do that, you need to join our bracket challenge. This is the last time I'm going to be able to tell you on the air. Join the bracket challenge, cbssports.com/FFT. That's the URL. Go to cbssports.com/FFT. Super easy. You have to have a CBS Sports account. If you don't, make one. That's also super easy. But again, go to cbssports.com/FFT and join the bracket challenge. If you win it's free, by the way. If you win the bracket challenge, you're in the podcast league. Other thing to tell you is we're doing a mailbag tomorrow. So send in your questions, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Keeper dynasty questions. I don't love them. Let's do something more fun and interesting that everyone can enjoy. But fantasyfootball@cbsi.com, letter I. And participate in the mailbag. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football today.
And freeze.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ hits every highlight from all the sports that matter to you.
JJ, we appreciate your time breaking it down.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With the plays you missed.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And analysis to give you an edge.
All we need is 20 points.
I was shaking in my boots.
Texas, Ohio State, who wins this game?
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, streaming free 24/7.
Okay, welcome back. All right, we're talking worst values here now. All right, I'll start. Dan
froze before the commercial, and somebody just wrote, "Dan doesn't freeze, he waits."
There's been some odd freezing issues on my end that I'm trying to get a handle on that showed up on Beyond the Box this week. On that note, please, everyone, check out the new Beyond the Box Score channel. FFT's Beyond the Box Score has its own YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe and help us grow. I'm serious. It will really help us. So please take a few seconds to do that.
Dan's worst pick, and I think one of the worst picks of the draft, a guy that really I just don't think deserves to be drafted, it was Darnell Mooney with the 10th pick of the 9th round. It's just no, he doesn't know. Come on.
Why?
Well, first
Did
of
I
all,
need to tell you some stats on Darnell Mooney? Was that something you'd like to hear?
I'm going to say 1,000 yards with Justin Fields. He's had 2 good years in his career.
I'm giving you 1,000 yards with Justin Fields. You want stats? I'm going to give you real stats. I'm going to give you Azer-esque stats, but even better than what the Azer stat is. Do you want them or no?
Not really. Sure. I mean, yes, obviously you have to defend this horrible pick, but I don't think I don't think he's worth rostering. He's not going to do much as long as Malik Neighbors is playing, which Neighbors should be ready for. Go ahead.
In 2024, before the Achilles injury, before he had to deal with just what I would describe as bottom barrel level quarterback play in 2025. Penix had an arm talent, but locked onto his first read, couldn't handle pressure. Didn't see Mooney a lot. Mooney was open, and he's just waiting for the ball, and Cousins would eventually get it there. But in 2024, when the quarterback play was a little bit better, according to Fantasy Points data, on all passes that were charted catchable, it was not Justin Jefferson. It was not Nico Collins. It was Darnell Mooney with the #1 yards per target versus man coverage on charted passes in 2024 and the 8th best separation rate on outbreaking routes. And you watch the tape at him, something I've obviously done as a Giants fan. He gets open, man. He beats press man. If you give him one-on-ones, he wins. He's a very good route runner. He's very good at getting in and out of his break. He's very good at the top of his route, at sinking his hips and creating that separation. Took a while for the ball to get there in Atlanta. Maybe that'll be the case with Dart. We'll see. He has to get on time. He has to be, obviously take that next step from a processing standpoint. But he's going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities in this offense with Neighbors on the other side, with all the 21 and 12 personnel they're going to run. It's just going to be one-on-one for Mooney the entire year. I don't mind that setup if Dart can take that next step.
All right. I hope you're right. He's, I think, 29 years old, coming off an absolutely terrible season, Darnell Mooney. And he's
terrible only is in the eye of the beholder.
Well, his statistics were...
Yeah, they were bad. That's what happens when you have Penix and Cousins. But
443 yards in 15 games and 1 touchdown. I mean, there's not really much... Like, Pitts had a fine season.
London, I know. That's what I'm saying. Penix is a lock-in first-read guy, and he was just going to London and occasional Pitts.
They've got Neighbors, and they've got Likely now.
Is Mooney getting drafted at all after the NFL draft?
Well,
no, I'm just asking. Like, did they draft a receiver?
Listen, this wasn't my best pick. I want to make that clear. Oh, the Giants draft a receiver?
Yes, they will. I don't think they'll do it.
No, they're not drafting a receiver. I actually don't think they will. They don't have a 3rd-round pick.
Well, I'm just curious because obviously you guys follow this. Dan, does the Giants podcast. So, like, does this move and the likely move speak to this is how we're addressing our receiving core and our pass catchers more so than because I know, Adam, you were the end of the season last year. They're drafting receiver, 5th pick in the draft.
No, I maybe the 5th pick in the draft. I think
wanted them to use 5 at receiver.
No, I said maybe the 1st round of the.
No, I'm not saying you were like it's going to happen. I'm saying that was something you were speculating on.
Yes, I do think they will. Well, yeah, right. They added Likely, but Mooney and Austin are 1-year deals, so I don't think that's going to preclude them from drafting a wide receiver if they want to do that. At some point, they will draft a wide receiver, not necessarily one that will affect Darnell Mooney this year. All right, let's move on though. Let's talk about Jamey. Dan. Dan, your pick for worst value was Rachaad White with the 1st pick of round 7. Rachaad White in round 7.
Yeah, Rachaad White not trying to come down too hard on Rachaad White. I actually like the evolution he's made as a runner in his game, but ultimately speaking, it feels like this team could be the team that drafts Jeremiah Love. That's how I see it. I know some people think he'll go at 4 to the Titans. I don't. Some people think he'll go at 5 to the Giants. I don't. But I think Washington will do that potentially. Even if they don't, I think they might be the team that takes what Jamey was talking about earlier, that early day 2 running back. And then it just becomes a really tricky situation there with Bill, Krosky Merritt, and with Rachaad White on an offense that's offensive line declined clearly last year. They fired their offensive line coach. They have a new system a new offensive line coach. They get rid of Cliff Kingsbury, which some might think is like a good thing overall, and it very well might be. It is not a good thing for their run game. Cliff Kingsbury can design a really good run game. The proof is over and over and over again over a very large sample size of him coaching a lot of different teams. So I think the run game takes a major step back in general, and it's just hard to find where the points are coming from for Rachaad White.
All right, yeah. First pick of round 7 seemed a little early for him. He, might be a third down back. We'll see. Maybe he gets in the mix there and really competes for the starting job. And then this is an interesting one, Jamey and Dan. But Jamey, you did not like Jaylen Waddle. He went with the 9th pick of round 3. Dave took him, and he went after Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, and T. Higgins, ahead of Devontae Adams, Kyren Williams, and Ladd McConkey. This is Jaylen Waddle, round 3, pick 9, and you thought that was bad value.
Yeah, we literally just had gotten done right before the draft, our emergency podcast. And for me, the earliest I would take Jaylen Waddle is round 5. I think if you're going to start to be in on Jaylen Waddle, round 4 makes some sense. I don't see him as a top 20 receiver in Denver. And look, there certainly is a path for him to have a very good, if not great season. But Courtland Sutton is still there. We saw last year Denver 4th in the NFL in pass attempts, 613 pass attempts.
Yeah.
So where does the target distribution go? So I think if you look at it, in the 2 years with Bo Nix, the second guy in targets. So in 2024, it was 135 targets, I believe, for Courtland Sutton. Number 2 was Javonte Williams at 70.
Mm-hmm.
Throw that out. Now we have year 2 of Bo Nix. We have 4th in the NFL in pass attempts. The second guy in targets, Sutton was at 124. The second guy, or 125, whatever it was, the second guy was Troy Franklin at 104. So if you're taking the 70 from Ingram, if you're taking the 70 or whatever it was from Mims, the targets that went to Pat Bryant, and you're just consolidating all of them and saying this is where it goes to Jaylen Waddle, and they're both around 120, okay, maybe I could see it. But his best seasons were his first 3 years. He was getting over 140 targets per game. Or 100 and right around 120 some odd targets per game were the average in those 3 years. He's been banged up each of the last 2 seasons, even though he's only officially missed 3 games. It just feels like it's a huge ask for him to go be that guy unless Sutton gets hurt, because we have a situation where they're both going to still get opportunities. He's never been a big touchdown guy. I just don't know if Waddle is a number 1 wide receiver. And this is essentially where he got drafted. Like when you start to look at those guys in round 3, like that's the tail end of the number 1 receivers. Certainly the top 15 guys. I can't do it. So if Dave, has that kind of, feeling that Jaylen Waddle has potentially a career season, then you're going to draft him there. For me, if this is where he's going, he's going to be a bust.
I feel very similar. Jamey outlined a great case. And then, on top of all that, it's the injury history of Waddle too. And that's not something like it's not like we're drafting some foolproof player who's played just this long, extensive history of never being banged up with injuries, never having those in-game injuries that kill you in fantasy where you start the player and he plays a few snaps. So he's almost being drafted as that hasn't happened because there's all those other question marks in addition to the injury history on top of that, as Jamey outlined. So that all that together for me makes it so hard to invest anything really near this type of asset. I know he'll be ranked ultimately around this area because that's just the state of fantasy right now. There's not a lot of good receivers in fantasy, and it dries up quick in that round 3-4 range.
Yep. Yeah, it's a tough ball, especially
get it.
When AJ Brown and T. Higgins are off the board in round 3. That's where
it gets tough.
Start struggling. You
don't like my Evans pick. You probably don't like my Adams or Evans pick there in round 3-4, which I can fully understand.
So you went Adams in round 3, 1 pick after Waddle. Then we had Kyren Williams, Ladd McConkey, and then that's the end of round 3. Dan was picking 10th. So he goes Adams at 3-9, then Kyren Williams, Ladd McConkey, Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka. That is a pick I really like personally.
So the way that I picked Higgins right before Waddle went. I was like, man, I really want to get Egbuka on the way back. If I don't get Egbuka, I'm going to jump in and take Loveland if he's still there. So
I would have taken Egbuka over Loveland,
but to me, Egbuka's better than Waddle. I like Adams and Evans better than Waddle. I like McConkey better than Waddle. I like Burden better than Waddle.
We're not going to be in on Waddle this year because he's going to end up going in this range.
So I was reading, I think it was the Fantasy Life newsletter, and they had one of their analysts said wide receiver 25, and one said wide receiver 20. So that's basically the range. Like I don't know if he's like, this is suggesting top 15
receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Dave is really excited now. Obviously, Dave is on vacation, and maybe he just it had just happened a few hours before we drafted, so I don't know if he was just being aggressive.
This is he took him at the 18th receiver off the board. There were 17 picks before Waddle.
Right. I think like if you're really looking at that round, you can argue if you want to. I would take these guys over Waddle. But you could argue McMillan versus Waddle. You can argue Flowers versus Waddle. You can argue Wilson versus Waddle. Now, I think Rice, if there's no issues, AJ Brown, even on the Eagles, I think there's a huge gap between those guys, what they can do and what Waddle will do. And for me, Higgins as well. I took Higgins on,
Yeah.
But, Wilson with his quarterback situation, Flowers, we know, has just never really ascended to those heights yet. And Tet, is he going to do that? I can argue for Waddle in that case. I would still take all those guys over Waddle personally. But, if that's where you want to sort of have some of those conversations, I get it.
It's like with Waddle, it's almost like, sorry, go ahead, Adam.
No, I was going to, with your picks, Adams at 3-9, and then Mike Evans in round 4.
Four.
I just wouldn't pair those two. I like
it's a lot of injury. It's a lot of age risk.
They're old. You've got two of the oldest wide receivers in the NFL.
Yes.
That might be 20 to 25 touchdowns, though.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, but both of them are coming off like pretty inefficient seasons, which I don't necessarily buy. I thought the tape I watched of Mike Evans was really good.
Adams as well.
Adams, yeah. I don't really understand why.
That's the thing. Like, I'm just drafting the best guys. I know they keep getting every year. We're going to do this with Adams until it falls off, and I'll take it. I'll keep getting the wins, and then when it falls off, I'll take the 1 year where it doesn't happen. I feel the same with Evans.
I just don't know if I would have gone back to back Adams and Evans in rounds 3 and 4. It's just
I'm super excited about that.
Dan's
three receivers
roster.
McConkey, Burden, and Ibuka. That's first and second year guys, or third.
I would have taken Ibuka over obviously Evans, not Adams. But and honestly, thinking back, I might have rather paired, but like you said, Ibuka and Evans or something like that, just to get.
But Dan's roster, like if you just look at the first 4 picks, that's I'm going to win or I'm going to finish last place team.
Yeah, which is how I play fantasy. So it checks out, honestly.
Got to say the roster, guys, because McCaffrey, Walker, Adams, Evans. That's
like if they all hit, you're talking about borderline number 1 running back, borderline top 10 running back.
Yeah.
2 top 15 caliber receivers.
Right. It's
Those-
still a
just those
touchdown
first
game.
ones, forget about
Fantasy.
everything else
I
after,
always
like-
say this on air because I stand by it. It's still a touchdown game. It's hard to predict them. I understand we don't like to talk about them because they regress and there's some variance and luck involved in touchdown scoring, but it is still a touchdown game fantasy. You need guys on teams that are going to score points. There's a lot of guys on teams that don't score points that get drafted high. Like Waddle, for example. To me, the path for Waddle to outscore Evans and Adams, I don't see it unless the Broncos traded for him to be a focal point of the offense. And that's not something we've seen from Sean Payton, with the exception of the Michael Thomas years. But that was between Thomas and Breeze, where Thomas was Breeze's ex. And it's not unique, but it was a very specific scenario. Bo Nix has not proven to be that guy. Even last year with Sutton, he wasn't that guy when Sutton was playing the X a lot. So I'm also
so surprised that Dave is the one that went in on Waddle on a team that's still going to be very run heavy.
Yeah,
They were fourth in pass attempts.
Huh?
They were fourth in pass attempps last year.
But I think that also speaks to Dobbins getting hurt in week 10 and, sort of figuring things out as they went along a little bit. I don't think that, like, if you were to ask Sean Payton, and granted they were, the 1 seed, do they want to be a run heavy team, a balanced team, or a pass heavy team? I don't think he wants to be a pass heavy team. I think he wants to be balanced. And the reason I say Dave is because Dave had great research on Waddle with the run game good in Miami versus the not, being successful.
I think it was more like it was with Achane, and it was Achane as a receiver.
I thought it was all the above. I thought when the run game / Achane was working.
Maybe. Denver was 10th in pass attempts in the first 10 weeks of the season, by the way. I don't know when Dobbins got hurt. I completely think they're not going to be 4th in pass attempts per game. I was really surprised. I didn't even realize that until yesterday.
Because a lot of those are like those quick around the line of scrimmage hitters that Payton runs.
That's true, but
it counts as a pass attempt, but it's really like an extension of his run game. And those might go to Waddle, but I don't know for sure if that's how they're going to use him.
All right, let's talk about Evans here, because going in the 4th round, I feel like when the news broke that he was going to the 49ers, Jamey, I don't think you guys were saying 4th round.
I was a round 5 guy.
Yeah. All right. So this was a little earlier than I anticipated.
I may be a round 3 guy with Evans, like early round 3 when it's all said and done.
It doesn't feel wrong to me. I mean,
no, I think this is fair.
4.3 here. So why did you take Evans there?
Jacob and I, we actually did an episode, just one more shameless plug. You might hear that. This is another shameless plug, I'll call it. It's not a guarantee this will be my last. But on the Beyond the Box Score new channel, we are doing deep dive videos as we always do, the long ones. We're also doing shorter form content. So we're doing 10, 15, 20-minute like episodes on certain players or situations. We did one on Evans, and it allowed me to watch a lot of tape. And I think you said this a little earlier, Adam. His tape was really freaking good last year, man. Like, he's still one of the best receivers in the NFL. All the separation rates check out with this, by the way. Like, if you look at the advanced metrics, they tell you that Evans is still getting open, specifically on the vertical plane. And that's just something the 49ers have not had since Ayuk. And I even think from watching the tape, he does it a lot better than Ayuk does it when it comes to separating vertically, stacking the defensive back, and getting open outside the numbers on the vertical plane. Ayuk could do it on those in-breakers that Shanahan loves to run, those deep in-cuts, which Evans can do as well, by the way. He still separates on slants and deep in-cuts at a very high level. But he's going to add a verticality to the 49ers passing game that's going to be something we haven't seen in a while. And just looking at the schematics of the 49ers offense with Christian McCaffrey in there, eventually Kittle gets back in there, now Christian Kirk, there's just going to be, this is how they're set up, there's going to be a lot of eyes on McCaffrey every single play. So that means there's going to be a lot of one-on-one situations for Evans. And I think Brock Purdy is better at processing than Baker Mayfield. I think he's more accurate. And I think he's going to be better on the vertical plane than Mayfield was. When we watched Mayfield tape last year, that was a big problem with Ibuka in the second half. Ibuka was open on double moves, and Baker didn't get him the ball on time, or he didn't get him the ball accurately. I think that changes. I think that's a huge jump for his value. And then it's the red zone stuff for me. Like, I think he's going to be a total weapon for Shanahan in the red zone. So I think for me, Evans, I don't know where I'll come down. I just know it'll be a lot higher than this pick. And he's going to be ranked aggressively for me this year in fantasy.
I think just when you look at it, the thing you got to justify is, and everything you said about how they'll use him is I'm sure very accurate. He's an aging receiver, changing teams, coming off 2 years in a row where he's missed time due to injuries. And does that help going to a team, however it happens? Forget about the stupid thing.
Oh, the substation, the electric substation.
But guys get hurt there a lot.
Yeah.
And, to your point about McCaffrey, like, we're also counting on a 30-year-old running back to stay healthy the entire season that hasn't done it in back-to-back years in a while. So if McCaffrey does get hurt, does the setup for Evans, based on how, you described it, does that still remain the same? I wouldn't worry too much about that, because I think if Evans is healthy, he's going to get his numbers. But it's, I think, forget about Adams and then hoping Ibuka comes back. Like, I think the question is, like, do you take Ibuka ahead of both? Do you take McConkey, who could easily bounce back in Mike McDaniel's offense with the Chargers? I'm not saying you like one or the other. I'm just posing the theory. Luther Burden, who I'm sure Jacob would argue, take him over all these guys.
Probably.
Burden and his role, and even comparing Evans to DJ Moore, similar situation, guy going to a new team, getting featured, maybe a quarterback upgrade, in the case like you made, Purdy over Mayfield, I think is accurate. I would obviously argue that Josh Allen's an upgrade for DJ Moore as well. Like, is DJ Moore in a better spot? So I think when you start to just lump all these guys together, you got to weigh the pros and cons. And I think, obviously you're very high on Evans, so you take the guy that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if the injury was lower body last year, I'd be a little bit more worried.
I'm
Sorry. Yep.
That's okay. DJ Moore, by the way, I think he went one pick before I was about to pick in round 4, and it was one of those, damn it. 2 picks before me. Okay. Anywho, let's take a break and come back, and I'll tell you where Devon Achane went, Justin Jefferson, Ken Walker, Garrett Wilson, Colson Loveland, Rome Odunze, Wan'Dale Robinson, Tyler Warren, all these guys affected by free agency when we come back on Fantasy Football Today.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it? A crowd
It feels electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount Plus.
CBSSports.com/FFT. Go there right now. Join our bracket challenge. Okay, relevant picks. These players in some way or some form were affected by trades or free agency. Maybe they got a new quarterback. Maybe they had a teammate leave and there are more targets available. Achane went 7th overall. We're going to fire through these here. You just tell me good or bad value. He was the 3rd running back off the board. Bijan and Gibbs were the first 2 picks. Then you had 4 receivers with Malik Neighbors going 5th, which is wild. 5th overall. So it's Bijan, Gibbs, Chase, Puka, Neighbors, JSN, and then Jamey, Achane. You were on deck, so I think you had to consider Achane there, but he goes 7th overall.
I think it's fine for now. It's going to be tough to, believe in the Dolphins offense. At the same time, in PPR, this could be the guy who leads the running back position in receptions based on how this receiving core looks right now, which is ugly. So this is one of those where I think you got to see what they do in the NFL draft. If they go heavy at wide receiver, there's still a couple of big name receivers out there in free agency that they might be able to get cheap. Jawan Jennings, Stephon Diggs, for example, if that's a route they decide to go. But I think Achane's still a first-round pick. I would probably bump him down a couple of spots. But, if you're going to get him, this is a spot where he should start to come into consideration.
Justin Jefferson went 12th overall, which is higher than what we had seen when we had been doing these drafts in February. Dan, what do you think about Jefferson 12th?
I want to believe that anyone could produce more fantasy points for Justin Jefferson than J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz combination last year, and that anyone being Kyler Murray. But I have my reservations with Kyler Murray as well, so I'm not so sold on this one. I have to see where I'm going to be at with Jefferson. He's such a good player, and he should bounce back with some level of upgrade at quarterback play. I want to see a little bit of how it's going in camp and in the preseason and the connection they have. If he's even starting, by the way.
Are there any players who went after Jefferson? James Cook, Saquon Barkley, Ken Walker.
That I would take?
Yep.
I would take James Cook for sure. I would take Drake London. And I would take No, I wouldn't take Ken Walker.
Just go to the best pick in the draft, 22nd overall.
This is what you consider to be the best pick in the draft?
10th pick of round 2. Should have taken
Chase Brown?
Yeah.
That is a great pick. I actually don't know why he's still on the board there.
Amazing pick. So
Chase Brown's underrated.
A quick detour from the free agency thing. I took Jamar Chase with the 3rd overall pick. And then I got Chase Brown, who, if you guys have been listening, I would take him with, I don't know, maybe the 8th or 9th pick. I love Chase Brown. I got him with the 22nd pick. And I go, you know what? I could take T. Higgins in round 3 and Joe Burrow in round 4.
Could have got away with it.
But it was only a mock draft. So, and Josh Jacobs fell to me in round 3. I was like, there's no way I can take Higgins over Josh Jacobs.
It was a PPR.
Yeah, it's full PPR. And then Burrow actually went with the pick before me in round 4. But I was like, ooh, this might be the time to do it.
As I look through this board, it just I don't know if it'll stay this way. But right now, I feel like you have a major advantage picking earlier in the snake draft than the end, because Jacobs, Henry, like that versus Walker, Barkley, Hampton. Like I don't really see much edge to getting Walker, Barkley, your choice of Walker, Barkley, Hampton, and then not getting that early first round guy like Chase.
Yeah, maybe. All right, so now we go to Ken Walker, and you can talk about that, Dan, because you took him with the 3rd.
Jamey, do you feel like there's any year? Sorry, I have to ask, and Adam, you too. I feel like there's any year it's been an advantage to not pick at the top early in the snake? Really and honestly, do you honestly feel like there's ever been an advantage to it?
To not being
not getting the chase, to not getting like the really great, to being at the back end of the snake. Isn't it always a disadvantage?
I think there's probably always the sentiment that it's a disadvantage going into it, but I mean, you think about like 2 years ago.
I know fantasy is unpredictable, but going into it, Jamey, did you remember one year where you'd rather have the back end picks of a snake instead of the early picks?
Where I want to?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody wants to have their fate dictated to them as opposed to, being able to decide the players that you want.
Yeah, but you're supposed to get the extra pick in the second round, the better pick in this. There's supposed to be some advantage to it. So do you ever think that there?
I mean, to the people last year who drafted Barkley early in the first round versus the people that took, let's say, Achane early in the second round, like the advantage that you got if you took, let's say, McCaffrey, who fell to the back end of round 1, if you had McCaffrey Achane, Like I had one league like that.
It can work out. I get it, but
I'm trying to look at
if you've ever felt that way. I don't think
I
felt...
think he's gonna come down to players, but like you don't ever want to be in a situation in life where people are saying you have to wait for what you want as opposed to what you want.
Do you think fantasy, a lot of the years we have like 3 or 4 really different players on a different tier, and then a lot of the time you're supposed to get the edge back in the snake in the second round, but then we see stuff like this where it's like, I don't know, man, Jacobs, Chase Brown, Henry.
But like Adam, for example, just taking what he just said, he has a strong feeling about Chase Brown. Chase Brown is probably going to go ADP wise. My guess would be anywhere from 13, because I don't think he's going to be drafted as a first round pick. Adam said he would take him at 8. So 13 through 24, right? So if Adam knows he's picking at the back end of round 1, he knows he can, let's say, start his team with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Chase Brown and be thrilled about that, right, Adam?
Of course, yeah. I'm looking up. I'm doing a little experiment here to test this theory. But yes, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Chase Brown would.
Right. So you know, based on where Chase Brown is going to go, that's a player you're targeting that's going to have an ADP early in round 2, most likely. So you know you're going to get, if you're picking at the back end versus you're picking at the top of the draft, and you're like, man, I don't know if I want Puka or Chase, if I want Bijan or Gibbs. If I screw this up, my team's going to suck. If one guy gets hurt, like, you can certainly play it out that way.
Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you this. I'm looking at about 6 of my leagues.
Okay.
And who won? Fantasy football today, Jack Capitordo won. He had the 12th pick. Beat Chad Smith League, I won. I had the first pick.
Superflex League?
10-team league. No, I'm not doing any Superflex.
You're not doing the Superflex League that we both played in that I won.
Because
is that a purpose, or
it's completely irrelevant. This argument is irrelevant in Superflex leagues in terms of where you're drafting. Okay. This is a friends league that I'm in. Greg won. He had the 3rd pick. This is my FFT Open League. The guy who won my division had the 10th pick. The Joey Wright, who's actually in the chat right now listening to the show, he won our IDP league. He had the 3rd pick. So I took 5 leagues. 3 of the 5 winners had picks.
Count the IDP league, but you won't count the Superflex league.
This argument about when to draft.
We've never seen a sample size as big as this one.
I'm just saying that what is it better to have an early pick or a late pick is completely different in Superflex than it is in a 1 quarterback league. So that's why I was just looking at the 1 quarterback.
It's not different in IDP league.
Not really, because the IDPs, they don't start going off the board until pretty.
I'm kind of with Adam on this one, but I'm definitely not with Adam on. Let's take a poll of 5.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Played in
3 of the 5 leagues, the top 3 picks won.
Yeah,
and then the other 2 was 10th and 12th. So I think there's been some studies that show that picking early is better, but
yeah,
I think I get a late pick and I'm like, oh, I can't win this league now.
The fact that it's not that you can't win this league now, I just feel like you're just at a little bit of a disadvantage, and it could be even.
Can we talk about why you took Ken Walker so early?
Yeah. So Ken Walker obviously joins the Chiefs. The upside is through the roof for me in my mind with that fit. Just from a schematic standpoint, I like him in the run game. I think they're going to be using him more in the passing game as we move forward, and that's something we saw flashes of in Seattle. We actually saw it a little bit early last season. I got excited about it, and then it fizzled out. So did his role. But, Pacheco leaves, goes to Detroit. Did they re-sign Kareem Hunt yet? Are they going to re-sign Kareem Hunt? Not yet, right? He's still free agent, I'm pretty sure. So I just think he's in a really good spot, and I believe in that team. And even like the weeks where they're going to have to start Justin Fields, that's like a good thing, I think, for Walker. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Maybe the scoring will go down, but the opportunities will go up. He'll get more lighter boxes with Fields taking a defender. That lead defender has to, account for him on any kind of zone read. So I like the fit. I like the talent. And I've never really bought Walker. This will be the first draft I probably ever drafted Walker, even mock draft that I've ever drafted him. This is going to be the first year I'm going to consider getting in on Walker.
Okay. Now, after Ken Walker, Drake London, who's going to potentially have a new quarterback. He went 16th, which is, pretty normal. Right just ahead of Nico Collins. Ashton Genty, I put him nothing really.
Not just a new quarterback for London, Tua.
Yeah. Well,
it's just not a good thing. Like it's a new quarterback and it might be worse.
Might be. I'm not sure. Yeah. Ashton Genty at 2.8, 8th pick of round 2. Why did I put him in here? Well, they got the best, arguably the best free agent. They got Tyler Linderbaum at center. So hopefully that helps Ashton Genty. Okay, then we get to round 3, which had Garrett Wilson. Jamey, he went ahead of A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson with a new quarterback, Geno Smith. He went ahead of A.J. Brown and T. Higgins. Was that the right pick there?
I don't love it ahead of some of the other wide receivers. We spoke about this, I believe, with Joe Pisapia, about where Garrett Wilson should go. Like Geno Smith, I think will be fine for him. It's not the ideal quarterback upgrade that we were hoping for. I just think if Garrett Wilson stays healthy, there's an opportunity for him to be a borderline top 12 receiver. So he's in this range. I just prefer the upside of Brown and Higgins more so than I do Wilson right now. I wonder if Wilson did not get selected there, could he potentially gone back to Johnny in the 4th round? Like, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
Wilson to me is like the best example of what we were talking about earlier, which is like there's such a dearth of talent, or dearth is maybe not the right word. I think I'm looking for the other word, the opposite of it, or maybe I am at wide receiver in fantasy. That that a player like Wilson, who's literally never lived up to his ADP. Every year we have his ADP too high.
Well, he did last year.
Oh, his ADP was so low last year that he did.
It wasn't that low. He had a great year last year.
I don't think you could say he had a great year when he played 5 games.
Great year last year. Is that what you're saying?
He was a top 10 wide receiver in the first 6 weeks of the year.
He had 395 total yards.
He played.
I know it's because of injury.
7 games. He left 2 of them early.
Right. That's not good.
Okay, but
great year. If you drafted Garrett Wilson, you weren't happy.
Were when he was healthy.
But that's not the game.
Well, he doesn't have a history of injury.
You can't say great year when a guy plays 5 games.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
While he played, he was a great value.
Yes, but you can't say great year.
He didn't play a lot. This is a wild take from you.
That's like your Azer statting.
This is an Azer stat. You're Azer statting a great year. This is
Azer
amazing.
statting my ass. He had 71 or more yards in 4 of his first 5 games.
But you're saying great year.
So hard.
So like in real life, you'd be Azer statting a calendar and saying, "Wow, can't wait to celebrate New Year's, July 31st."
The first five weeks of the season.
Garrett Wilson that one
was insane.
You can't call it. I don't think anyone besides you would call Garrett Wilson a great value last year.
I'm just saying, no, fine.
All due respect.
Point
being, like, Garrett Wilson has a lot of talent. You can watch the tape and you can see it, but he just really has disappointed in fantasy every single year. Maybe not bad value, maybe not the right word for me to use, but just disappointment at where you pick him.
He performed above expectations for the 5 games that he played. But you cannot say he had a great year.
Okay, first he played 7 games. The first 5 games were amazing. The 6th game, he got surtanned.
And then he didn't play in the 7th game.
And then he played 19 snaps in the 7th game.
The season was over, and that's a great season in Adams.
No, it's not a great season, but what he did is what he did last year is enough to justify him going in the 3rd round. For example, Rashee Rice played 3 healthy games in 2024. What he did was so good in those 3 games that combined with the last 6 games of his rookie season, it justified him going very
I don't know if that justified him or that and the combination of, I don't know, he had a quarterback that maybe is pretty good.
Yeah, and a role that was so defined.
But I'm just saying, if you look at what Garrett Wilson did last year was pretty similar to what Rashee Rice did.
Yes, but to justify where they were drafted last year for Rice, this year for Wilson.
Rice was drafted later because he was facing a suspension. I'm just
saying.
What I'm saying is the justification is that one had a quarterback too. Like, if Wilson had gotten, let's just say,
offense is the power slot.
If Wilson got Kyler Murray, right? Kyler Murray's decided to go to the Jets instead of going to the Vikings. We might be talking about Garrett Wilson in round 2.
It makes me frustrated when I think, in my opinion, I am making a very clear, normal, wonderful point. And it's like you guys are hearing it in a different language. Like I'm using Google Translate.
Well,
that can be so frustrating.
A very strange phrase in regards to Garrett Wilson, that he had a great year.
You did say that.
Played the year.
If you just look at the 6 healthy games he played, he was a top 10 wide receiver. And he did that
you used the phrase great year.
Well, okay. Obviously, I meant on a per game basis, which is more important than overall, because in the first 3 years of his career, Garrett Wilson stayed healthy and he ended up with he was top 24 wide receiver, but he wasn't even close to that per game. That is what
I understand what you're saying. I just think to say, when you're looking at the totality of Garrett Wilson, like the injury plagued year that he had in 2025 has to be taken into account.
Why?
because we have not seen him do that over a full season.
I
Now,
agree.
if he had done that, let's say 5 more games,
Right.
then I think you could say, wow, this guy's awesome. And now
He
he
just
has
hasn't.
to
Yeah.
justify it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. That's why I think he should not have gone ahead of AJ Brown and T. Higgins. But when you start talking about risky wide receivers like Ladd McConkey coming off a bad year and Devontae Adams being 33, I believe, or Jaylen Waddle, who we just talked about, I think Garrett Wilson belongs in that group.
Yes.
All right, so we all agree with everything, just not my evaluation of his season. All right, next up was round 4 was almost exclusively players who were affected in some way by free agency or trades.
Yep.
And you tell me good or bad value. Luther Burden, first pick of round 4.
Good.
Fair value.
Emeka Buka, second pick.
Good value.
Evans, third pick.
Depends who you ask. I say good.
Good for Dan, fair for Jamey. Colston Loveland, since you
missed
guys
Scadabu, that's an interesting one.
Was he affected by free agency?
Oh, I thought you just meant all for 4th round pick. Sorry. Well, he was. The Giants didn't sign anybody, and they were rumored to sign Ken.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't include everyone.
Okay.
So
fair value.
Colston Loveland. You go Jamey, then Dan. Colston Loveland, 4.5.
Fair.
Fair value.
So Jamey, then Dan. Travis Etienne, for 7th pick of round 4 for Etienne.
Good value.
Meh.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not that high on this ETN Saints thing.
Achane, but why?
Oh, Achane. I have to call him Achane now?
I don't care. I don't even know what.
Is that what he asked?
Yeah, that's what he said. He said
I was always supposed to be called Achane, and they just
that's
called
his
me
name.
Achane.
He said he was always Achane. People once he got to Clemson had a hard time pronouncing it.
Dude,
so
why are so many of these athletes just accepting wrong names? It's crazy. This could never fly with me. People were just calling me Schneer my whole life. I'd be like, no, it's Schneier. Like, it's just not, it's going to sit there and take it. Like, it makes no sense. Like, ATN doesn't even sound like HN.
Yeah, I don't know why people
is
are
it A-Chain or is it A-Chain? It's got to be A-Chain, right? He said.
Achane.
Wow. All right. Well, Travis Achane. No, I don't hate it, but I'm not in love with that value at all.
All right, we'll move on. DJ Moore, 8th pick of round 4.
Fair value.
For me, it's fair, bordering lower. I'm not as high on that as you guys are.
How about Bucky Irving, 10th pick of round 4?
Ooh.
Good value.
I just like the talent enough, so I'll say good value. And the O-line's great, but a little tricky, that situation at running back.
Romo Dunze, last pick of round 4, 48th overall. Romo Dunze.
Fair value.
Meh value. I don't see it happening.
So Odunze went 48th, and then 49, 50, and 51 were also wide receivers.
Can we talk about the fact that we just took 3 Bears receiving options in one round, and it's a massively run first team?
It's a great point, but after Odunze was Jamison Williams, Terry McLaurin, and Devontae Smith. But yes, Dan, we can talk about that. It's putting a lot of faith into the Bears offense for sure. And when did DeAndre
putting faith in their passing game? Because their offense is great, but they're a run first team.
Where did Swift go, Jamey? Why am I? Oh, he went
to RJ at the end of round 5.
I think the best value of all these players is McLaurin.
Start around 5.
Take McLaurin over like every one of these guys, I think.
No,
so Swift was the first pick of round 6. Yeah, well, you think it's too rich for these picks, Dan? All 3 Bears.
I just think that if it's not, I don't know individually if it's too rich. I just know they're a run first team, the Bears, that run the ball really well, and we're taking 3 of their receiving options in the 4th round. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think Caleb Williams got to, because I think we would have heard the story on it. He didn't get to 4,000 passing yards last year, right?
No, he fell just short. I think the thing when you're looking at these guys is it's almost we're back in a similar boat to where we were last year of who is going to ascend to the top of the, I don't want to say depth chart, but who's going to ascend to the top of the mountain from a leader of this group. And I think if you look at it just in the totality of it, you're probably going to look at the upside of what Burden can do or the upside of what Loveland can do, and maybe just sort of settle for Odunze as the 3rd option. I don't think anybody's going to put Odunze above the other 2 because of what their potential could be. Then you sort of separate, okay, the 2 receivers versus the tight end. So like to me, Loveland right now is the 3rd tight end off the board, should be the 3rd tight end off the board. And then when do you want to sort of jump in on him, knowing that McBride and Bowers are going to be somewhere between probably 11 and 24. They went, middle of round 2 for McBride, end of round 2 for Bowers. Like I told you before, if Abuko is there, I would have taken Abuko over Loveland, but Loveland to me in round 4 is a good spot to take a chance on him. Burden has not shown the consistency yet of being a guy that's going to take a leap forward. Obviously, this move to get rid of DJ Moore opens the door for both these guys to, showcase their skill set. At least in the case of Odunze, you saw at the beginning of last season in Ben Johnson's offense, a great stretch of production. Now, Burden didn't get that opportunity. We saw it a little bit toward the end of the year when Odunze had the foot injury and Loveland was still sort of battling through whatever shoulder, just not being ready yet to take that leap of being featured. I don't mind it for these guys where they went. Burden in that range of wide receivers, Adams, McConkey, Burden, Abuka, Evans. I would probably have Burden behind. I like Abuka better. I like McConkey better, but you make an argument for Burden just, of what he can be. But again, where Odunze went, yes, you can make arguments for Jamison Williams, Terry McLaurin, Devontae Smith, even Marvin Harrison, in my mind, that maybe they're better than Odunze because, you're talking about what Jamison has shown, McLaurin bouncing back, Devontae Smith, whatever. All these guys have similar sort of chances to ascend to being, top 20 caliber wide receivers. I just think now you take DJ Moore off the field. It's not like we're talking about a guy that had 140 targets. It was 85 targets last year. It wasn't like it was a big number, but now you're just opening the door for all 3 of these guys to get opportunities. And if you buy into Ben Johnson, which I'm sure everybody does at this point, if you buy into Caleb Williams, which I think a lot of people are starting to, and you hear what Ben Johnson said at the combine, we're just getting started. Hopefully Caleb Williams, 4,000 should be an afterthought this year if he continues to play like he's capable of playing. I know, Dan, you were his rookie season saying he was going to, that was one of your bold predictions. He's going to be, the first Bears quarterback to go 4,000 yards. And it made a lot of sense. And even more so to double down on that last year, he was close to it. I think we could be looking at a 4,400 yard season for Caleb Williams. And hopefully we're talking about, 35 passing touchdowns.
That's a crazy projection because Dan is right. They are very run heavy. I think they ran the second most plays in football last year. So it was kind of hard to see how run heavy they were because there were a lot of pass attempts because they ran so many plays.
Yeah.
If they ran a normal amount of plays, I think we would have been frustrated by the pass volume if the rates, the pass rate had been the same. I think if it's too rich for you, just draft Caleb Williams. You want to get a piece of the Bears passing game, draft Caleb Williams later.
But to Jamey's point, if Caleb takes that step forward that we believe is possible, then I think they become a more pass-heavy team. I think part of why they were so run-heavy, because they're successful with it, and Ben Johnson's great at designing the run game, but also because there were limitations when you watch Caleb Williams on film from a processing standpoint.
It reminds me a little bit of the Chiefs last year who had 3 pass catchers going kind of in the round 5 to 6 range, which is a little bit different because Rice was facing the 6-game suspension. But Worthy, Kelsey, and Rice, and honestly, Mahomes and Pacheco were all going in the same probably 2-round range.
Right.
I think, though, in the case of the Bears, again, you're swinging for the fences here. Loveland, what he showed at the end of the season, 4 straight games of 10-plus targets. You don't get that at that position with his upside. Burden in the 2-3 game sample size that we saw looked like he could be really special, especially what he does from, a secondary metrics perspective. And Odunze, to what Dan said at the start of the show about Adams and Evans, Odunze could be their touchdown leader. We're talking about a guy that could be 8+ touchdowns. So it's not like you're saying, I'm getting these guys to guarantee me this production. I'm taking chances on these 3 young wide receivers, 2 second-year guys, 1 third-year guy, that if one of them hits, okay, I like the scenario of where I drafted him. If all 3 of them hits, and nobody took, doubled up on these guys, but if all 3 of them hit, to your point, Adam, Caleb Williams has a big year. You got great value where you drafted him as a starter, but I got maybe the top, the number 3 tight end or a top 3 tight end. And I got, one of the top 20 wide receivers because I think that's their range of outcome. It could be pretty special for these guys if they hit.
Yeah. It's also a statement about the wide receivers and just there aren't that many appealing options, especially when you're in the 50s in the draft.
But also just looking at it, Burden for where RJ drafted him, that's his 3rd receiver. Love that.
Yeah.
Odunze, second receiver. But where Alfredo drafted, it was McMillan and Odunze. No, I'm sorry. It was Odunze and Jamison Williams back to back. So that was essentially his 2 and his 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on, guys. David Montgomery, round 5, in between Travion Henderson and Javonte Williams. Middle of round 5, David Montgomery with the Texans.
I'd rather have Javonte over both.
Yeah, Javonte just very, very undervalued in this draft.
Wan'Dale Robinson, 11th pick of round 5. And then Tyler Warren. It's like back-to-back picks. I really didn't like the Wan'Dale pick, and I love the Tyler Warren pick.
It's funny. I'm like almost the opposite. I don't love the Wan'Dale pick, but I like it. I think that the role is clear. You watch any Cam Ward last year, you see they had no outlet in the passing game, and that was a huge issue for them, which is what Dable was going to give them with his slot. It's how it always works. So I just think it's force-fed targets. Warren, like, I don't want to put my Hawkinson stamp on him. You know my Hawkinson stamp. I said last year Hawkinson was undraftable before the year. I think I was probably pretty much proven right on that. I think, was Hawkinson ever worth starting last year? I'm not going to put that on Warren yet. Warren's way too talented, but I don't see it the way you guys do with Warren. If you look toward the end of that season, once that version of the Colts offense that really thrived for the first 5-6 weeks of the season was figured out on tape and adjusted to, they went away from Warren, and there weren't as many of those manufactured targets.
Not get away from Warren.
Oh, I think you're looking at this the wrong way, Dan. I mean,
okay.
Daniel Jones broke his leg. That's when things fell
okay.
apart.
Maybe it is just a Jones injury.
But he's coming off a torn Achilles, so it is worth mentioning.
Coming off a torn Achilles,
pretty big piece of the puzzle.
What'd you say?
They removed a very big piece of the puzzle
in Pittman, which could help Warren from a target standpoint. At the same time, coming off the Achilles, they lost Braden Smith, their right tackle, to the Texans. Didn't replace him yet. I was wrong. Obviously I was wrong with Jones. I guess we're calling him a great quarterback in the NFL at this point. I don't know.
No, nobody's saying that.
I don't know what to say on that front, but I don't think I'll be buying on the Colts this next year. I know that.
That's certainly a fair sentiment. I just think like what Tyler Warren showed when Daniel Jones was healthy. Forget about what you think about.
Okay, that's fair.
When they had their starting quarterback healthy, when Shane Steichen's offense was working, and you could say figured out, and that's fair because again, you get a 9-game sample size of what a team's starting to do. By that point in the season, you're starting to get ideas of how to slow them down. But you went from Daniel Jones operating this offense, being very successful. I think, Adam, you said at that point they were the number 1 offense in the NFL, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Then he breaks his leg, plays 3.5 games essentially with a broken leg, and Tyler Warren's stats go in the tank, and then he tears his Achilles, and now we're talking about 58-year-old Phillip Rivers coming in, and Tyler Warren was never the same.
That's fair.
So I find it fascinating that you take Laporta, and factor in Warren, where he went 2 picks later, and then a round later, Harold Fannin goes. Why Laporta over the 2 young tight ends? Now you obviously made your case for Warren, but why over Fannin?
Oh, I love the Laporta pairing with Drew Petzing. The Drew Petzing thing is just, I think Laporta is the easiest breakout tight end this year because of Drew Petzing. Just look at the work he's done with Trey McBride, just from a developmental standpoint with McBride, but then mostly just how the targets were manufactured for McBride through multiple different quarterbacks, Kyler and obviously Jacoby Brissett. The touchdowns weren't there with Kyler because Kyler is that kind of quarterback.
But do you think that happens with the other weapons that Detroit has?
Well, I mean, they are outside receiver. Amon-Ra is an inside guy, so that could complicate things because
and a run game.
And a run game for sure that maybe Arizona definitely didn't have. Don't think the volume is going to be like it was for McBride. Let me make that clear. I don't think Laporta is going to return 1st-round value or 2nd-round value. I think in round 5, though, with the Drew Petzing bump, and just I like Laporta as a prospect and a player, I'm okay taking him there. I would take him over. Obviously, I took him over Warren, but Warren, Fannin, looking down the board, Kraft's interesting. I might consider that, but I'm very high on Laporta. I think I'll probably have him ranked as my 4th tight end.
I don't think Laporta's getting 100 targets. I mean,
I think that's
what did McBride get?
I think that's the
McBride got like
stealing, but that's close to it.
100.
What did McBride get?
I don't know.
Well, you can't compare McBride and Laporta.
He had 169 targets in 17 games.
McBride, and what about the year before?
He had
if it's easy to find.
147 targets and 16.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the premier offense from a target volume standpoint for a tight end to be in, a Drew Petzing offense. I don't think there's really any debate.
I struggle with that whole
I would
philosophy.
take Stefanski, who was his boss.
I don't know. I struggle with that philosophy. It's did they throw to Trey McBride because he's a tight end, or did they throw to Trey McBride because he's the best pass catcher on the team? You're not playing with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams.
That's a question everybody's gonna have to ask themselves. I believe the answer is because of the scheme.
Well, listen, it's definitely a benefit for Laporta to get Petzing. I think it's also two things we got to see what happens. Dan Campbell last year took over play calling duty. How much of that is still going to be a factor? Does he still want to do that and just have somebody design different plays for him? Or, he just wants a figurehead in that role, somebody in the meetings to, help out. Arizona's personnel, so different than Detroit's personnel, looking at what they have, certainly in the backfield, obviously at wide receiver. And I don't think Laporta's as good as Jay McBride. I don't think he's as good an athlete or a talent. So
I agree.
The touchdowns could certainly be there for Laporta. We've seen that. We saw it in his rookie season. He could be a 10 touchdown guy. I don't know if he's going to be more than 100 target guy, and that's where the problem comes in. So Petzing comes from that Stefanski tree, which when he was in Cleveland with Stefanski, the tight ends were great. Stefanski's tight ends were still great after Petzing left. Petzing's tight ends were great in Arizona, or tight end was great in Arizona. So I think you get elite level player, you feature him. I don't know if Laporta is elite level player. I think he's above average level player. He's shown that. So what I would probably suggest to you, Dan, next time, if you have that feeling and you're on an end and there's still Warren and Fannin on the board,
true.
Like you probably wait around.
Yeah, you're right about that for sure.
Well, we're out of time. So
it's like halfway for
draft.
Yeah, we'll have to get to. There was so much more. We could always pick this up next week. We'll do the mailbag though on Thursday. And please send your questions to fantasyfootball@cbsi.com.
You didn't think my first show back since the season was going to be a short one, did you?
No, I mean, it was interesting stuff. Just
okay, good.
There's so many things that, one thing I haven't brought up, but I just would love to at some point, is how I actually think that the Mike Evans signing could be good for Ricky Pearsall. I have not talked about that at all.
Interesting.
I just don't think he was playing the role.
I don't disagree.
Well, he was running deep routes last year. In the beginning of the season, the preseason, Kyle Shanahan talked about how Ricky Pearsall has such good hands and he really fits in well with the yak concepts that they like. And he's going to catch the ball and he's going to do a lot after the catch. Then he became this very high route depth guy, running clear out routes all the time for getting other guys involved. And now Mike Evans is going to be running the downfield routes. And I think it's going to really help Ricky Pearsall and put him in a role that he can thrive in. He went with the 9th pick of round 7. Mm-hmm. So just a lot of free agency that we haven't talked about. And I look forward to getting into that. But tomorrow, mailbag, bracket challenge, cbsports.com/FFT. Thanks a lot to Dan. Thanks a lot to Jamey, and to all of you for watching and listening. I'm Adam. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.